Hey, what's up YouTube? This is nyOPERAguy, and I wanted to comment today on American Idol. The new season has begun, and as we're all watching, there's a lot of people on there that are decent, that aren't getting through, and then there's a lot of people that you wonder why they got through. And of course, they have their lovable losers who come on and perform and get ripped apart by Randy, Paula, and Simon. People have been asking me since I went on the show what it was like to be on there, what really happened behind the scenes, and I thought I would talk about it here on YouTube. Let me just start out by saying it's difficult to watch this year. I didn't do my best performance on the show. I realized that I attempted to scream the lyrics to really overpower the judges with my voice when I should have just kept it a lot softer and prettier. A lot of people have questioned about editing on the show. Some people wrote that, oh, they can't edit your voice because of lawsuits. Well, that's a crock. Let me explain to you the process of going on American Idol. See, American Idol is a reality show, but it has very little to do with reality. It's very, very well scripted, and the camera's going to pick up exactly what the producers and directors want the camera to pick up. The first day of auditioning is where you have like 10,000 people all at a stadium of some kind. I was out in Las Vegas. We waited in line probably around 7 or 8 hours. We got into this big convention center, and then it starts with the, everyone say the one line, the whole crowd. I think we were doing Viva Las Vegas. After about an hour and a half of waiting inside the auditorium in basically what would be a cattle run, you go into this other section of the auditorium where they have about 12 or 13 booths set up. And then you're all supposed to gather in groups. Now, once you arrive at your booth, there's 3 or 4 people. They're not sitting down at a table or anything. They're just kind of standing there, and you line up in rows of 4 at this point. So you have 12 booths of 4 people lined up. So now I was on the first row. They have the people by row. There was 4 of us for this particular booth. We all stepped up. They do about maybe 10 seconds of your song, real quick. Bada boom, bada bing. They go down the line. Our booth was the first booth to go, and I was the only one out of those 4 who made it to the second round. I was the first person to make it through there, so I wasn't standing around. You immediately shuffled off to another room. They narrowed it down from, it was probably about 7,000 people there in Vegas to maybe 150. They real quickly get rid of people and keep people they want. Then you're in this smaller room, obviously, but at this point they had, I think they had like water and like maybe some fruit or something like that for you if you wanted. And you're just kind of hanging out, and all the other people that get through, we're all excited, we're pumped up, we have to sign these waivers, bada boom, bada bing, and we're talking about, well, what's next? Nobody really knows. They announced that there's going to be a second round of auditions. These auditions are held before the executive producers of the show, Simon Lithgow, and I forget the other guy's name. This is 2 of them. And, they hand out your numbers, and you're going to go in this certain order. I was probably around the 30th or 40th person to go before those guys and sing. Some really phenomenal singers that went before me just were, not put through to the next round. I was kind of surprised, and it made me really nervous to go before these guys. When they tell you you're going to be going before these next, judges, you're given a song. Everyone is given the same song, and you have to learn it, whether you've sang it before or you've never sang it before. This is the song you have to sing for them. My song and everyone else's song in Las Vegas was I Will Survive. This is why when you're watching American Idol and they go through that clip of everyone singing the same exact tune, like everyone chose to sing that song for some reason, no. You're told that you have to sing that particular song. I'm not familiar with I Will Survive. I mean, I've heard it on the radio before, but I've never actually sat down and learned it. So we were told, don't worry about it, just do as much as you possibly can. Walked into the room. It's the exact same setup as when you're singing in front of the judges. And, except these guys are actually much nicer. At least they seem to be. They're much more interactive with you. They're asking you questions about who you are. As to where when you get before Simon, Paul, and Randy, it's just like, come on, do your thing. The executive producer wants to know a little bit more about you and, why you want to be on the show and a little bit about your past and what your plans are. When I first got in there, they told me to do the song I wanted to do, which was Lately. And they liked that. Then they asked me if I could do the I Will Survive. I went for it. I thought I did a good job. I actually got into it. I was really, trying to get through the next round. So, I was moving around, having a good time with it. And, they said, okay, you know what? We're going to put you through the next round. I was really happy. I was like, all right, this is cool. I had to come back not the next day, but the day after, which meant for me, I had to cancel my plane reservation, make new plane reservations, stay longer at the hotel. So, I made arrangements to stay. I was really happy. Went out to karaoke that night, had a great time. Actually got spotted by somebody from American Idol at karaoke because on the morning I went to sing for Simon, Paul, and Randy, some of the producers were like, oh, you were at karaoke the other night. And I'm like, oh, I guess I had a good time. When you make it through that second round, the first thing you have to do is go fill out more paperwork. One of the things that they emphasize is you have to wear the exact same outfit that you wore the first time you went and auditioned. You can't deviate. They want you wearing the same coat. I had the stupid sweater vest, which had I known I had to wear that every time, I would definitely pick something different. But whatever, what happens, happens. In the morning that we're supposed to sing, we had to be there by 8 o'clock. I decided to show up at like 5, because I didn't know how many people would be there. Some people that I had met previously had made it through. It was really cool. Some of them were honestly not singers. Now, people have told me since seeing my video, oh, you're not a singer, just give up on singing, you should never sing. Well, I beg to differ. I'm probably not a pop singer. I do have an operatic voice. I went to college for journalism, joined a choir at college, and was signed to a 4-year full scholarship at college the next day. So I know I have a gift. Obviously, the route I needed to go was not American Idol. But we can't cry over that spilled milk, can we? So I'm there waiting. There was a couple people that, couldn't even try to hold the tune, that you knew were there just for the show. But the thing about it was, they didn't realize they were there just for the show. They thought they were there because they were going to get on for dancing. There was one guy in particular. He's like, I know I can't sing, but the judges told me I dance great. And the guy was like kind of very nice person, but he wasn't totally there. You have to go through interviews that day. Yes, I did see Simon and Paula and Randy throughout the hallway walking around. They were very nice. Hello, how are you? Nice people before we got in there. One-on-one, seemed to be cool people. As you're waiting for your interview to go in with them, you're all in another room. This is probably about 30 or 40 people total on this final audition day. They bring Ryan Seacrest in. Ryan Seacrest had been told that I sang opera, so out of everybody, he comes and sits by me while he's doing the interviews, and he had me sing an aria. One by one, they take you and they bring you up to another room, and you have to do another little singing thing for them, basically the song again, in the same exact room with the same exact background, everything. They really want... This is where editing comes in. What they did was they took... was it 1, 2, 3, 4 performances that I did in that particular dress up, with the same background, the same stage, the same everything, and they splice it to make you sound however they want you to sound. Now, yes, my voice was very overbearing that day, and I sang way too loud, but you can tell there's certain parts of that song where my pitch goes from like, ah, and like no one's gonna sing like that. I couldn't do with my voice what they made me do. Then you're brought into another room and you're told to pose and dance and they take videos of all that. The last thing they do is take you with a producer and they sit and interview you which is where that part came in. Hi, my name is Anthony. I'm 28 years old from Roselle Park. Like, that's when they're doing that. They're asking you all these questions. Very leading. What are you going to say if Simon's rude to you? What are you going to say? Or if you make it to Hollywood, you know, they know the answers they're trying to get, and, you know, in the emotion you give into everything. I hate the way I walked into the building that they showed me walking into but they tell you how to walk. They want you to walk a certain way. I did it like 4 times. And at first I was just walking normal, but they make you go the way they want to portray you. Then, finally, it's your turn to go before the big 3 judges, Randy, Simon, Paula. I walked into the room, and you go up onto the little platform. You're told exactly where to stand, and you stand there, and they're very nice. Well, hi, how are you? What's your name? Hi, my name is Anthony. And then Simon asks me who my hero is. And I said, I'm from New York, I'm thinking to myself. And so I said, Joe Namath, Broadway Joe. He guaranteed the win. You know, Randy was like, yeah, and Paula was like, good job. And Simon looked at me blank, and he was like, who's Joe Namath? Never heard of the guy. I don't care who you are, you should know who Joe Namath is. So Randy corrected him. So right off the start, I got on a bad foot with Simon, I guess. You know, he said, well, you know, why don't you do your song? So I sang Lately. I pretty much sang the whole song for them. Then they asked me to do another song. I did Billy Joel. I did New York State of Mind, which I shouldn't have done that one because that's another one where I kind of just wanted to bang out the lyric. I wanted to impress, but what I wound up doing was like shouting. And that's where I made my mistake. So afterward, and by the way, the looks that like you get from when I was singing, it showed like Randy, he's like, oh no, he's doing this, and you know, Simon's like, and all. They're not doing that. They're pretty much closely watching what you're doing. Those are definitely shot at another time. They're just like probably B-roll footage of them making certain, you know, faces and stuff like that. That's has nothing to do with what goes on in that room. I've got to say, in the room, they're very professional. When I was done, Randy was like, you know, your pitch is not on. Simon was saying how I was not a pop singer, and Paula was saying how I had a theatrical voice. All of them said to me that I had a good voice, but it wasn't what they were looking for in the competition. So I was very nice to them. I was like, you know, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity. They seemed very nice and cordial to me when I walked out of the room. It wasn't until after I walked out of the room that Simon made the comment about my weight. Maybe he didn't even say it when I walked out of the room. He might have said that hours later, and they just shot that footage. Who knows? I walk out there, and immediately Ryan Seacrest is in your face. So what do you think about what they said? And, you know, that's all edited too. I talked to him for like 3 or 4 minutes. They showed maybe 10 seconds of it. And, you know, some of the times when I was saying that, you know, my voice I was in pitch, because he was like so hammering, making exaggerations of what the judges actually said. So I knew I didn't do a great job, and I wasn't totally surprised I didn't get through. Disappointed in myself because I know I'm a much better singer than what I portrayed on television that day. So that's what I went through on American Idol. Watching it this year and seeing the contestants get slammed and come out crying, and then give these post-interviews, which real quickly was one other thing. When I had walked out of the room, they told me I'm supposed to go upstairs and they're going to do this whole post-interview with me, which is that's where everyone's crying. They get you real emotional and do all this stuff. I went upstairs and I said to myself, I'm not doing another interview. I'm not going to get caught all emotional with this stuff. So I tried to leave, and they wouldn't let me leave. They said, you have to wait here. So I said, that's fine. I was like, can I just go to the restroom? And when they let me go to the restroom, I snuck downstairs, hailed a cab, and got out of Dodge. It was about 4 weeks later when I received a call from some of the producers of the show saying they loved my story and they wanted to do a segment on me. Now, you can watch American Idol. I am the first person ever on American Idol who did not get through to Hollywood, who had a whole segment where they came to my house, they interviewed my family, they, you know, talk. Most of the people, they give like a little background, but, you know, I'm the first one that actually came to my house that didn't get on the show. And I think they knew because the weight remark there was going to be a big uproar. That's why I did that. Since American Idol, I've been on Access Hollywood, I was in Rolling Stone magazine, the National Enquirer, the local news around here. I've had a lot of great things happen to me. I still have some things in the works. I've spoken with some people at some really great television shows, and you never know what's going to happen, and you deal with it as it comes. I have a full-time job, I make good money, so I'm happy where I'm at, always striving for more. If I would have went out for American Idol again this year, you can bet I would have been on television again. I'm not going to subject myself to it anymore. But I do feel for the people on there that, especially the ones who were led to believe they had a chance of getting through and then you know, trashed by everybody. Don't believe what you see on television, because it's not an accurate portrayal of what really happens on any show. And I'm sure American Idol is not the only show that's like that. I'm sure they all are. But that's my American Idol experience, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about it. I'm sorry if I rambled on. I'm sure this is a long video. Anyway, this is New York Opera Guy, and I shall talk to you guys soon. Have a good day.